So in this video, we're going to stick with exploration, and I want to focus on the research question. Last time we talked about independent and dependent variables, and now we're going to talk about the research question. What is a good research question? So, a good research question is one that mentions the independent variable and the dependent variable, and it mentions the dependent variable with units. And try to be as specific as you possibly can. So let's try to do one together. So I recommend starting with the old TOK thing. To what extent? That's always a good one. So to what extent does something affect something? That's it. So when you state your research question, you're going to state your independent variable first. So if we're using our photosynthesis example, we would say, to what extent does light intensity, right? That's our IV. We talked about setting the plants up different distances from our light source. What effect does light intensity affect the rate of photosynthesis? I gotta get a better way to write. And I'm gonna be lazy and just write photo. There's a key word here that I used in this. Rate. So you have to measure speed. It depends, of course, on the experiment you're doing, but if you're measuring some sort of reaction, it should be done in speed. So in our last video, we talked about oxygen production being the thing that we're going to measure. So the rate of photosynthesis, and we would say measured by, be lazy, O2, oxygen production. But that's still not a rate. So maybe parts per million, you can measure like molecules in parts per million, per minute or per second, or percent increase is always another good way to measure it, but per minute or per second. Like it should have some sort of time as a way to measure rate. So that is a good research question. If you remember, I said be as specific as possible. Talk about the plant, right? Talk about the plant that's being used in the experiment, because that could play a role in your data. Also, the independent variable here, to what extent does light intensity affect? Light intensity, talk about how you manipulated light intensity. To what extent does light intensity controlled by distance from light source affect the rate of photosynthesis in something plantis measured in oxygen production in percent increase per second? I know that is super wordy, but if you are creating some sort of published piece of work, which many of you will someday, somebody needs to look at the title of your investigation and know exactly what they're about to read.